Sorry, good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to this additional East Grinstead Town Council Planning Committee meeting. Following a preliminary meeting in May with the team from Welbeck Land, the Town Clerk and I have requested this meeting so that the developer can present their plans for the Mid Sussex allocated site SA20 to the committee. They will be going through their plan and findings from the public exhibition in November and the changes they've made and the feedback and from the feedback that they've received. I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this meeting is to review the findings from the presentation. However, it's important to note that this meeting does not involve a comprehensive examination of the entire application, nor will we be deliberating on its approval or refusal. This meeting serves as an opportunity for you to raise any inquiries you may or queries that you may have regarding various aspects of the development. However, it's crucial that you refrain from forming predetermined opinions at this stage. This committee meeting should not be seen as an occasion to express your personal stance on whether you support or oppose the development. That's to committee members, just for reference for our members of the public in the meeting. And for our residents in attendance, this is also the opportunity to help formulate your response when the application is made in full. So first off, we're going to move on to public participation. And thank you to everybody for coming along this evening. And also to those watching and listening on Zoom. So prior to the commencement of the formal agenda, there is a designated time of 15 minutes during which a maximum of 2 individuals can speak in favour of a specific application or presentation, and another 2 individuals can speak against it. Each speaker will be allocated a maximum of 2 minutes for their statements. There is no right of reply, and your question or representation must not last longer than 2 minutes. So in the event that no individuals are present or willing to speak, we'll proceed directly to the agenda. That's the case. I think we do have some members of the public that would like to say a few words. I'm pretty positive. I'm thinking that I haven't got anybody wishing to speak for the development here tonight, but do we have any residents that would like to speak? No, no, that's fine. So this is the full agenda hasn't started yet. This is public participation. So this is a chance for members of the public to speak to the developers and us as a committee. So we have one person, Mr. Carter. Yeah. So far away.
Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. I saw from the previous meeting I came earlier this year. I spoke to all the representatives from various companies for this development. I'm sure I believe this development will not improve or in any tangible way, and I believe it will have potential mental effect on all of us. Construction of local habitats, huge inconvenience and environmental impact to local residents directly and indirectly, affected by months, if not years of work. This is not only my personal opinion or the many posted online, it's the analysis of the infrastructure road which was published previously. The main point I'd like to ask, has this developer, I believe it's Welbeck, analysed the Atkins engineering report? Summarise, in 2020 the council paid Atkins engineering to assess the road network in East Grinstead and the proposed development we are being asked to consider today. The road network was only an extra 190 dwellings. And the road network, i.e. London Road, Belgrade and Ingle Road, was substantially improved. It stated the maximum capacity would be 765 dwellings. In theory, that would be the capacity of the East Grinstead road network. Since 2012, I've looked at all developments around the town. They include Imberhorn Lane, Kingscote, approximately 100 houses, Bluebell Gate, Beacon Rise, the Mount Noddy Convent, Turnersville Road, Copthorne and Cordydown Road, and the numerous flats being built in Sussex House. This I equate roughly 650 houses. This is a lower estimate, and combined with many smaller 1 or 2 housing developments in Eastminster as a town, I believe we've already reached the capacity. Nothing has actually been done to improve the road network that I can see, not to mention the doctors, schools and infrastructure. To then add another 500 houses and potentially 200 on Cordydown Road would mean we've almost doubled the projected capacity, with minimal, if any, change to the network. The representative I did speak to in Acton from Welbeck dismissed the report, saying analysis was already undertaken and sees all the previous reports, which at best I believe is a distraction, at worst is a way to present more favourable information to support the proposal. I've now been informed the only analyst of Starner was a permanent council in Inverhorn Road Inverhorn Road Junction. I believe there has
10 seconds.
Thank you, yeah. So my advice would be to unequivocally reject the proposal and actually improve the existing infrastructure in Eastminster before we develop those new houses. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? No? Okay, thank you. I think we'll move on to the formal agenda now. We have some apologies for absence, or not.
Yep. We have apologies from Councillor Mockford, who's at a Mid-Sussex District training course, and we have apologies from Councillor Pond, who has a personal commitment, but he is on Zoom.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to propose that we accept those absences. Can I have a second? Thanks, Councillor Whittaker. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item agenda number 2 is to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of June. This is for accuracy. I'd like to propose them. Can I have a second? Thank you. Are there any comments on those minutes? No? Okay, I'll move to vote for approve those, please. Thank you very much. Yeah. Just now. Cool. Thank you very much. Item number 3 is to receive members' declaration of interest. Would anybody like to declare any interests? Councillor Whittaker.
Chairman, thank you. Yeah, I am a member of Mid-Sussex District Council and on the District Planning Committee, so I reserve my right to take into views this evening and take them forward subsequently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Same for me, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 4 is Chairman's announcements. We have none tonight, so we'll move straight on to the main feature. The presentation from Welbeck Land tonight. I'd like to thank the team from Welbeck for agreeing to come in tonight, actually, so thank you, chaps, to show us what they're looking to submit as a planning application for the Inverhorn Lane allocated site SA20. I'd now like to hand over to Adam Robbins now for a detailed presentation. Questions from the committee can be asked at the end. Thank you. Robinson, sorry.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm Adam Robinson. I work for a company called SB Broadway. I'm a member of the consultancy. I'll just introduce you the other members of the team who are 3 at the table. Damon Turner, it's not there from Welbeck Land, so Welbeck Land America's got the site, and the application will be going in. Stop the racks, these James that Hammond from Stantec, born in Stantec are the master planners and also actually the planning consultants for this scheme. And then on the left here is Paul Cranley from Pearl Frischman. Pearl Frischman are handling the highways and engineering element of the scheme. Obviously, you may remember we had a public exhibition in this room 6 months ago. Very well attended over 3 days, with over 500 people over that time. And clearly, it is a scheme that elicits some strong feelings. So we've taken that away. Obviously, we're hoping to be in a position to submit an application within the next month or so. So we wanted to come back to the town council, make you aware of how the scheme has changed. and obviously take your questions so that you're in a better position to consider it once it's accepted. So I'll hand over to Damien to take us through the.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everybody. Will stand today.
Hopefully you can hear me and see, then I'll stay seated in that case. But no, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity.
Can I just make a note? Can we really speak up, because there is people on Zoom and I just want them to be able to hear.
Right.
So if you could project, maybe a little bit shouty, but
Right, okay.
There's your microphone, then we can.
Right, right, okay.
Like a flask.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in and talk to you. So we've been on this site, this opportunity here at Imblehorn since about 2015. We have promoted the land through the sort of local plan process. We originally got involved back in 2015 when it was the Mid Sussex local plan that was being prepared, but we got involved probably a little bit too late to have any sort of influence over that local plan process. We also engaged heavily within the neighbourhood plan process as well, and obviously you as Town Council had your neighbourhood plan made, and this land was not included for any form of development within that neighbourhood plan. And then obviously, as you will be aware, there was a daughter document, the Site Allocations DPD, which was the daughter document to the Mid Sussex local plan, and we promoted the site through that process, securing an allocation last year when that plan was formally adopted. So I think it's fair to say that we have worked within the due process. We've been on this, as I say, for around about 7 years. We've engaged extensively with all the statutory consultees through that process, and we've engaged extensively with Mid Sussex District Council. And obviously, the plan was examined by an independent inspector who found that plan sound and therefore has found that this site is worthy and deserves the allocation for up to 550 homes, the care community for 142 dwellings, and then land for significant enhancements to Imblehorn Secondary School, the provision of a primary school, and a large country park Sands area as well. So we've been through that process. The site has been thoroughly tested, thoroughly analysed, and thoroughly scrutinised by independent professionals, and it secured its allocation last year. Alongside that, we also entered into a planning performance agreement with Mid Sussex back in February 2022, and that really was a process to go through the detail which followed on from the site securing its allocation. So that covered off everything from master planning, or technical design issues, talked about drainage, flooding, highways, ecology, sound. So everything that you would expect to see included within the formal planning application, when that is submitted, as Adam has sort of intimated, within the month. We've been through an extensive process with the officers within Mid Sussex and also with West Sussex County Council as well. And as Adam has articulated, we held a very well attended public consultation event here back in November, and as we all know, obviously it was a number of sort of strong opinions were voiced during that, but we have taken on board some of those comments and have made some changes to the proposals following the feedback that was received during that public consultation process. So I think just to sort of refamiliarise ourselves with the land that we're talking about, and I hope you would all know exactly what we are talking about. So obviously you've got Imblehorn Farm down here, the Worthway running across the, I always get the north and south in this one, completely the wrong way round, but that you've got the Worthway on north, you've got Gulwich sat here, and you've then also got Falbridge to the south of the site, Burgess Industrial Estate, and then obviously Imblehorn School. So I think we should all, I've got the north and south the wrong way around. I always get it the wrong way around, but so obviously, as locals, you will know only too well where the land is located, the various sort of public right-of-ways, footpaths, and obviously the permissive way that our landowners put in place to allow people to access more than what is currently permitted under public rights of way. James, do you want to talk through the design evolution going all the way back to 2015?
So, thank you. Yes, as Damien says, we've been working on this for a good 7 years now, and we came to this with an initial idea. We never end up with that idea because we like to take on board everybody's views, and that's not just public views, but also understanding the comments and important elements with regard to ecology, landscape, drainage, and views in, views out, access, movement, and there's a plethora, and I'm sure you all know that. But as you see, we started here with an initial concept which was quite compact. It's looked at delivering an expansion to the school, and it looked at delivering all of the numbers in terms of the requirements for housing and school and a local centre in a compact manner. So as this developed in terms of looking at and getting a better understanding of the need to accommodate drainage on site, we also then started to understand that the school required additional land over what we thought they would need for an expansion to their playing fields. That required additional land. We also then got a very good understanding of the importance of the heritage assets on site and how we needed to respect those. And that included the woodland as well, which was significant and class nation woodland. So that started to allow us to sort of think about how the organisation of the site would be, and we started to look at moving a little bit west and keeping away from those heritage assets. You go to the next one. Sorry. And as you see, as we go further in, by the time we got to November 22, when we came here with a presentation and consultation, at that point we had been asked to establish the provision of SANG, a country park. This is actually well in excess of what we need in terms of what the development would put pressure on. And for those of you who don't know what SANG is, it's an area of additional green space to take the pressure off very important other green spaces in the area. So it's local, it's nearby, and it means that people don't get in their car and drive off and use very well established areas and damage them further. So what we have here is something that allows people to get into the surrounding countryside, have the ability to experience that wellness and the exercise and the recreation that comes from that. And it's on your doorstep as well. So it's a very sustainable manner in providing that. And it also allows us to expand our provision in terms of biodiversity as well. At this point, we also added the provision of the allotments and further additions in terms of expanding the drainage as things changed in terms of climate change. We've had to respond to that to make sure that there's enough space to ensure that we cater for all of the requirements to ensure that flooding and surface water is dealt with on site and in the correct manner as well. And also allowing that to be a large enough space to ensure that those places are beautiful, not just engineered holes that take water. So these will be places that will be properly landscaped and will also provide opportunities for further biodiversity. Part of this movement towards a more linear arrangement and having we took all of the development out from the field that sits between the two areas where just so you Inverhorn Farm and Gullidge, and it was important that they had their proper setting retained and there was no interference in there. So everything is above the drawing. What's commonly known as the Yellow Brick Road, which we've all enjoyed and was quite remarkable when you first turn up on site and experience that particular feature of the site. That also means that it's not interrupted in any way, and other than just a single crossing close to the main road. That part of those discussions with the local authority, we had a series of workshops, especially about design, which brought this massive change, which also then established a new green infrastructure, which brought green space into the centre of the site as well. And previously we felt that there's so much on the outside, we'd be able to get to it very easily. But the authority was very keen that we develop a central green space. And that worked very nicely in terms of putting all the facilities around as well. So it becomes a place of activity, also becomes a place for a meeting point where the school is and some local facilities are. So after the consultation here, I project to a number of changes came about from that. We looked at a new primary access arrangement, which here will tell you about after I finish. Looking at a different manner in which we cross the bridleway, the circulation route as well, and how that primary route has changed. In addition to the sports changes in the SANG, parking for the SANG as well, enhanced wildlife corridors, and relationship with the ancient woodland, and improved pedestrian connections as well. This is the representation of what is before you will be before you now. This is where we are at the moment, and as you can see, it's broadly similar to where we were before. We've taken on board all those points that we just highlighted, and the most difference being the access from the single point, which I think I can hand on to you. Is that the next one?
It isn't actually.
It isn't actually, is it? Well, okay, so
it's worth discussing then.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to talk
it's
about
probably
the
best
start
to
of
do
the
it now, and then you can do the detail, because I think it's not.
That's right, yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
as James has said there, obviously the perhaps most significant change to the design of the scheme is the movement of the access location there. Previously, for those who would have seen the detail at the public exhibition, we had a 4-arm traffic junction at the existing junction between Inverhorn Lane and Heathcote Drive. That's changed now. There's been several reasons driving that. Partly to do with the Nanscott agreement and the technical legal details associated with that. Partly to do with the feedback we got from the public exhibition, whereby a number of properties fronting on to Heathcote Drive will be looking directly over that access. So what we've done is we've looked at an alternative access arrangement where we're providing a 4-arm roundabout in the bottom right corner of the site there. You can just see that red arrow there. That will, as I say, we'll look at perhaps the detail of that roundabout in a moment, but we'll be providing a roundabout there, which is to the south of the existing Bluebell Close junction. It'll be a 4-arm roundabout serving the main body of the site, one of the arm that carries on westwards there, and a separate dedicated arm to the care village. And we'll talk a bit more.
Yes, we'll talk a bit more on the detail, but I think it's important to So just moving forward, so a bit of the strategic detail of the application that's coming to you. The parameter plans that will be part of the application, which are the sort of the legal element that gets actual planning permission. I think it's important for you to understand what those are. The detailed plans are obviously there for further information. These are the ones that we seek planning permission for. So the first being scale, in terms of looking at the heights that are likely to be within within the site, and nothing higher than 3-storey, and only those around the entrance to the square to create a sense of place there and enclosure. And then the majority of the site at 2-storey with a small amount of 2.5. The site overall is quite well contained in terms of views in and out. It doesn't have great interface visually with the rest of the surrounding area. But that said, there's no desire here to build really high buildings or have a significantly high densities. This is a site that is being put forward, which is an appropriate arrangement in terms of density and height. Next. I think it's important to understand the quality and the level of provision that will be going in, and scale of the provision that is going into the expansion to the school, playing fields. There's football, a rugby pitch, running track, additional all-weather pitch in the centre. This is significant. This is game-changing. Game-changing? I think there's a pun there. Sorry, unintended. And with new changing facilities and green infrastructure around that, this is a real significant improvement to what is there, and is something that many schools seek and do not end up ever having. So it's a very important element of the proposals. So just moving back to the parameter plans, the land use plans here. So you have starting bottom corner, the care community, which is the main sort of fronting development onto the main road there in yellow. Sorry, yeah, heads in the way. The school, primary school, identified here in pink. The local centre area and the facilities that we were just talking about, the school, and then the rest is proposed as residential.
Okay, so jumping back onto our access, we've got a bit more of a detailed design of the proposed roundabout junction here. This is actually known as it's a compact roundabout, which is a slightly smaller standard size roundabout, which is considered to be an appropriate size and scale to serve the development. The principle of a roundabout in this location has been discussed with officers at West Sussex County Highways, who have agreed this is an appropriate form of access to serve the development. It's been designed in accordance with all the relevant standards within the Government Design Manual, which is Design Manual for Road and Bridges. The junction has been modelled both on a standalone basis, so we've looked at how the traffic flows through the junction, cause the junction to operate on an individual basis, but we've also looked and incorporated this junction design within our network-wide microsimulation model as well. In addition to the roundabout, it's proposed that in the future scenarios, a 3-arm signal junction will be provided at Heathcote Drive. That enables the capacity of that junction to be significantly increased. it enables a better throughput of traffic and better management of traffic flows rather through that junction, and that's also been incorporated within our network-wide traffic modelling as well. The junction itself here has been subject to a stage 1 road safety audit and has been approved as part of that process. And in addition to this, the pedestrian access from the north-east corner of the site, which you can't quite see here, where our previous junction proposal arrangement would have been, that pedestrian access will be maintained, so there will still be maintained and improved, so there will still be an ability for people to get to and from the north-east corner of the site and onto Inverhorn Lane. All of the details of this, of the junction, and the traffic modelling that goes with this and with the rest of the development will all be provided within the transport assessment, which is very, very nearly up and ready, and will obviously be submitted with the planning application hopefully within the next month.
So that brings us to the SANG. We've got a significantly more detailed plan of the SANG here. Let's call it a country park. I think it's a nicer phrase, and it certainly will have that feel to it. It will be a park. It will be somewhere that people it's a destination, and not only for those residents that are new, but also existing residents. And to that end, there is a car park to allow people to come and enjoy that as well. So a significant amount of mowing paths, as well as provided paths and new planting for recreational walking and exercise. And we will include this in the application as well. This is an illustrative layout. It's not necessarily the layout that will get built, but it's how we see one possible development of the site coming forward. And it's certainly how we have pulled the master plan together with our understanding of how a good quality place would be brought forward when this is then given planning permission granted and then developed by house builders. So we like to illustrate our best foot forward, and this helps as we go forward with as developers do come on board, because they understand what is expected of them in terms of placemaking, in terms of how the streets will work, and the manner and typology we tend to use, or the typology of the housing that faces on to different places. And we talk about the story heights and the densities of that, and this is a manifestation of that. It draws a lot of scrutiny by everybody when they're in these documents, and I don't expect any less. So I'd be interested to hear those comments when that is an appropriate time to hear them.
And finally, I'll just cover this. Obviously, like I said at the start, we are hoping to submit the application within the next month. Assuming that happens, we would then hope again to be at planning committee in Mid-Sussex by the end of the year. Of course, timescales do slip, but that's what we hope for. Assuming it did go to committee in December, and assuming it was consented at that point, we look to work on phase 1 to start about 6 months later, so a year from now. And it's worth saying that this is a hybrid application. So the detailed elements are the access, the sports facilities, and the sound. So if the the application is consented by the end of the year, a year from now, phase one would begin, and it would be those detailed elements. Obviously, reserved matters consent would be required for the other elements, obviously the housing in particular. So, but it's been set so that the sports facilities and the sand would be delivered ahead of the housing. And at the most optimistic timescale, that will be completed by May 2026, so just under 3 years from now. And it would only be at that point that the house building would begin, and that would be delivered in a number of phases, and that would take about 5 years to fully build out. So you'd be looking at June 2031 at the earliest, really. And phase two would include the plot for the primary school and also the care village element of the scheme. And, that is where we are. Obviously, we're still finalising plans with the hope of submitting in the next few weeks. And we're happy to take questions.
Right. Thank you, chaps. That's really very informative. I'm going to throw it open to the committee now for any questions. I'll go to Councillor Scott first.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask the developer, how do you propose to overcome the impact 500 units, circa 2,000 people, will have on the dentists and doctors' surgeries we have in our town? We all know the problems that are ongoing with dentists and doctors, not having openings for new patients, let alone existing ones. The people of our town need clarification on this, as do we as a council. As we all know, this is an ongoing problem in many towns, and this development will only escalate it in our town. Is there any?
So I'll take that. Thank you for your question, Councillor Scott. So since 2015, we have reached out to, at the time, what were the 3 independent GP practices. We had met with them and discussed with them their requirements and the requirements of the town. From day one, we have offered to build and gift a building for a new GP surgery. We have engaged with the various NHS departments subsequently, and again, the offer is there to build a GP surgery. There is a community building going on here, but as you would be sort of only too well aware, the decision of whether or not to actually put a GP practice there is something that is beyond our control. As I said, we have offered, we have engaged with the NHS. We do actually have a meeting lined up with Modality, who also now control too, and I appreciate there are probably views around the table about Modality, but we are doing everything within our power to deliver that, but I can't control whether or not the NHS and the various departments, the PCG and the various other departments that we've engaged with over the last 7 years to take that and put GPs in. We have offered, I would like to see one there personally, but that, unfortunately, whether or not that is occupied or taken up is beyond our control. That is recognised and acknowledged by the local NHS trust that we have engaged and we have could make that facility available. The community building that you saw highlighted on the plan will still be there. The care element, the care facility, from experience of working with sort of similar providers elsewhere around the country, they often include facilities for a visiting GP, and it is not unusual for the care facility element to make that provision available. Normally, they make that available to the wider population as well. So in addition to us reaching out to offer that facility, it may well come through the care village element, and often they have a facility in there that could enable a visiting GP to be there 2 or 3, 4 times a week for the residents there, but also for the wider population as well. Like I say, we've pushed for it since 2015. Adam has been involved in those meetings and other people around this table. We can only go so far, unfortunately. I would love to sit here and say that there is going to be one going on there, but that is beyond my control. I know that sounds like a politician's answer, but we have tried our best to push for a GP surgery to be there.
And it's something we're continuing to do.
We've got a meeting modality next Tuesday, so we're going to try and see whether or not we can get them on board with our proposals. So I fully understand your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
If I could do more, I would.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. To follow up to Tony Scott, I think you've partly answered it, but I'd like clarification. Obviously, you've started this process in 15, and your discussions with the NHS, the GPs and dentistry is ongoing.
Yeah.
What is the last set of forecasts and how should you say demand information you've been given from the NHS? And does it need updated? Because I think if it's anything less than older than 1 year, I would question the validity going forward to work out what additional information is required and demand for services in the town is, because I think it's a moving situation. You intimate you understand the situation of modality, and I would ask you, how old is the data you've been given from the NHS? Because I would suggest if it's within a year, it needs refreshing. But you've indicated you're seeing modality.
We are seeing modality on Tuesday, and I don't have those numbers to hand, but we'll come back to you with that information.
I would urge you to refresh the data.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, everything that we've been working on, be it ecology or other reports, is refreshed on a regular basis, because we're having that level of engagement in the same way that sort of the provision of school places is almost reassessed on an annual basis. So that's the way we're going, and we'll come back to you on that exact question.
Thank you.
Thank you. You referred to the care facilities several times. What is actually you've been provided as care facilities?
So the allocation is to provide land for a care community, which is planning class C2, which is effectively a sort of a minimum age requirement. Or I think it's 55, isn't it, James? Yeah, minimum age of 55. However, the operators that we are speaking to, so if you're aware of people like Inspired Villages or Audley or Rangeford, I think there's probably a similar sort of provider. Granted Planning Commission at Sayers Common by Hill, I think towards the end of last year in mid Sussex. We've got a similar facility at Hayward Heath. So normally there is sort of cottages, apartments, and people can sort of call upon a selection of services as they get older and more frail. Within, there's a core central building that would often have facilities such as a GP. Sometimes they have a swimming pool, they'll have a restaurant, they'll have a gym facilities, space for a pharmacy. So sort of the individual needs are location specific, but that is a detailed element that will come out as the plans progress. The allocation, as I said, is to provide a care community of a minimum of 142 homes, where there'll be an age restriction of at least 55. But the exact detail of that will come forward in due course. But that's what I would expect to see there: cottages, flats, facilities for that care community. But those two facilities are often made available to the wider community, and generally around the country they are generally well liked, very successful, and they also sort of employ a number of people as well.
Can I come back on that?
Yes.
Yes, that's for the older generation. What about the family units? What childminding, that sort of thing? Are there any facilities for families, with younger families?
So I mean, there's a primary school.
Yes, I know that.
And that will have early years provision. There are numerous sort of local areas of play. There will be sort of all the green infrastructure. We can go back and ask for that.
So these are the play areas.
So you've got numerous play areas dotted around. There'll be a mix of house types from 1 beds through to 5 beds, and policy compliant affordable housing as well. And I think one thing to be probably making clear on this is that a lot of the facilities that you see here, you wouldn't normally expect to see on a scheme of 550 homes. I think it's fair to say that through our conversations with Mid Sussex and representatives around this table, we've always taken the approach that if homes are going to come forward, we have to do more than provide homes. That, to me, is not the right way to go about things. And there are a lot of facilities on here: the primary school, the sports provision, which will have a community use, order put upon it for those facilities for Inverhorn Secondary School, all the play areas, the country park, and everything else on there is significantly above and beyond what you would ever see on any other scheme of this size and scale.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you. I think really interesting, thank you, and a lot of it we've seen previously. I think the elephant in the room, obviously, is if you could give us more information about your improvements to the wider road infrastructure, which I think is all of these bits are very nice. And as we have said many times in meetings, but it's the wider infrastructure on the junctions leading to this site and out of this site that are of the biggest concern, I think, to residents and to this council. So if you've got, it's been conspicuous by its absence from this presentation. So if you could give us more information on that, that'd be really helpful.
Just so I think Paul did sort of drill into the detail. I think the start point has to be that sort of what I was saying a few moments ago around creating a place that is sustainable in the first place, and really the old approach of modelling highways. I think we had to move away from that because you have to look at sort of how things are going to operate going forward as people view the use of their car differently. We have a primary school here. We are on next door to the secondary school. There are other community facilities going in here, so we have to take that as a start point. We've tried to make this as sustainable as we possibly can, and certainly a lot more sustainable than some of the other developments that have been permitted across the district or similar size that perhaps haven't got the facilities that we're talking about. So I think that has always been our start point, is how do we get people out of the car? And I know that will raise stickers around it because I experience that everywhere we go. But that has to be the start point. Car ownership is falling, the uptake of young people driving is at the lowest level it's ever been.
Thank you, please.
And I think that, and I appreciate that for some people in the room, that they may struggle to get their heads around that, but that is some of the facts around car ownership, sort of modal change, modal transport, and how things are viewed. But I'll let Paul drill into the detail more around sort of the wider network and how we've approached this.
Yeah, so as I say, I would reiterate everything that Dave has said with regard to car ownership and that kind of thing, and the way that is evolving as we go forward. But in terms of our off-site improvements now, obviously we mentioned the Heathrow Drive itself. We've also put together two other much larger traffic improvement schemes. These are, broadly speaking, what was presented at the public exhibition for those that were there, which is improvements to the Inverhorn Lane A22 junction, and which is effectively the widening of the junction itself, creating an additional lane through the junction in the westbound direction, which enables us to increase the amount of green time on all the other arms and enables effectively more traffic to get through the junction in any one cycle. The other improvement scheme that we presented at the exhibition was a widening of the A22 on the approach to the Felbridge Junction. This was designed to complement the committed scheme that is already in place with funding for the Felbridge Junction itself. Now, appreciating there's been a lot of discussion with regards to that scheme and why it hasn't been delivered up to now, and we've been in discussions with West Sussex on this for 6 or 7 years throughout the entire evolution of the project, and the schemes we've designed have been discussed with them in detail. They've agree with the principle of those schemes. They agree with the principle of those schemes being designed to complement the schemes that they already have in place. West Sussex have significant funding in place already, which they've collected from other developments. And the intention would be that funding associated with the schemes that we're putting forward would be combined with that funding to enable the actual schemes to be delivered. And obviously all the specific details regarding the schemes themselves, regarding all the associated modelling, what the impact of those schemes on improving journey times and mitigating impacts along the various different sections of the network will all be provided in detail within the TA.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Looking at, drilling into some of the detail, first of all, could you confirm how many allotments you're providing, and also the green space, the large space by the school, the property with number 10, is that going to be for community use, or is it going to be gated off for the school?
So number 10 is actually the school.
Is it, yeah?
Yeah, so that was it. And in terms of placing this as an illustration, what we're trying to confirm is that the school creates part of the facade onto green space, and it opens out onto it. So it's the place where.
Would it be right to think it's a village green in traditional parlance, or
That's the school playing fields, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is the school playing fields and the green space is there. But yes, you can certainly think of it as a village green. I mean, it is a bit more formal in the way that it's arranged, but it's a green, it's definitely a village green in the sense that it's a hamlet effect. It's 500 houses.
But number 10, the large green square, number 10 is the playing fields.
That's the land that's associated with the primary school.
And then on the left-hand side, which is 5, that would be
so that there
the
would
community
be a need or leave, and then this is green infrastructure, a square that sits with the school and housing around it, and it's part of the green link that runs up through here down through this strong green corridor that runs along the bottom of the development there, which connects. And if you can see, there's all the dotted yellow lines. So those are pedestrians routes that can be used for walking, running, dog walking, and linking you into the Sound, which is further on to the country park. The allotments, it depends on how many full size and half size, quarter size allotments people want, to be perfectly honest. It's more popular to have half size.
How many acres is it?
Ooh. That's a quick, I haven't got that number to mind. I'll find, we will let you know.
Okay.
Sorry, in terms of this, yeah.
Councillor Wiscott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just coming back to the Mayor's point about wider infrastructure, particularly traffic. Just to give some context, obviously this, you mentioned before that this site has been promoted and allocated by Mid Sussex District Council.
Yes.
Can you confirm, because it's my understanding that they are responsible for and discussing the wider infrastructure, traffic, hopeful solutions with not just West Sussex County Council, but also Surrey County Council and also Tonbridge District Council, because at the start, as you will be aware, and everybody in East Grinstead, the Star Junction is a confluence of 4 separate local authorities. So that's my understanding. Can you just confirm that Mid Sussex are actively involved in discussions on that point?
I mean, I can't necessarily speak for Mid Sussex on that. I mean, I'm aware that Surrey and West Sussex have been in discussions in regards to Star Junction. I don't know what the exact position of those discussions are, and I can't necessarily, I'm afraid I can't speak for them to say exactly what the position of that is. But yes, I'm aware that in discussions with it, and obviously we're aware that it does have an impact on their part of the network as well. Just to say that within our traffic modelling, we actually, the traffic modelling extends into past the SAR junction in both north and west to evaluate the journey times onto their part of the network as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gibbs.
Thank you. Forgive me for labouring the GP point. I know we touched on it a couple of times and it's not really within your remit. Did you say that you'd been trying to open a dialogue on this since about 2015?
So I think sort of early on when we started promoting this, we had meetings with what at the time were the 3 separate GP practices. We then met with them collectively and we offered them collectively and individually a facility here, but none of them were interested in taking up that facility.
I think that answers my question. I was going to say, I know you're meeting with modality on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, yes, that's correct.
But given in the interim, I'm assuming there's been back and forth discussions. I wonder what the sort of appetite was, if you like, from the stakeholders about putting something in place.
I mean, as I said, it is something that we've always pushed. We've had numerous meetings subsequently with the PCG and the State Department, who ultimately sanctioned whether or not they would take on board a new facility. The latest or the last meeting with them, I think it was last summer, was it?
It was in September. So
Yeah.
the CCG has been replaced by the Integrated Care Board of Sussex. So we met with the head of estates just before the exhibition.
Yeah.
And he basically said the same thing that we've just been saying. I can advise the local GP surgeries on an estate strategy. I can't force them to take on a new facility. So he said he would speak to them directly. When the application goes in, we will be engaging with NHS further, but we also want to try modality again. In the context of the applications now going in, this is probably going to be a reality, and perhaps their attitude has changed. But we don't know. All we can do is talk to them and find out.
See what they're saying Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks. I've got a couple of questions. First one is relating to the phasing and the timeline element. And it was said that the phase 2 onwards will include the primary school and care home and things. I just wondered if you could elaborate that or drill down on be a bit more specific on that.
At this stage, I probably can't answer that more specifically. So we haven't gone into more detailed phasing. That will come through once the application is submitted, and we then enter into discussions more formally with the county over the delivery of the primary school. The reason we talk about phase 1 principally is because, again, going back to the start of this process, enabling potentially sort of the amalgamation of the 2 Inghorn school sites has always been something that us and our landowners wanted to see happen. We strongly believe that community facilities have to come first, which is why the phase 1 includes the country park sands, but more importantly, I think perhaps for the school, is the provision of those sporting facilities. So at this stage, we've only split out sort of phase 1, which is the detailed element of the application, which, as Adam has already stated, is the sands, the access and the main route through, and then also the delivery of those enhanced facilities for the school and the wider community. So they will be operational before any home is certainly occupied, if not built. And then the phasing and the delivery of the primary school, that will be discussed further with the county as we progress, in the same way that, do we build out homes here first, do we build out homes over there? All that sort of level of detail from the phasing point of view is a detail that will be happening further down the line. But as I said, there are some elements that we've always been waiting to deliver in as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you. I've got just one other, and then I'll open it up to our non-committee member councillors. The other question I've got for you chaps is, you mentioned it's illustrative.
Yes.
So what realistically would a developer, I mean, is a developer going to come in and say that actually we need more space, we want to build more homes? Is that theoretically something that could happen?
Well, the allocation is for 5,000. Our application is for 550. Honestly, I can't answer that question, as far as we're concerned and our landowner is concerned, and all the work that we've done for the last 7 years has been based on the 550 homes coming forward, plus the care community. I think we can probably all recognise around the table that if market conditions change and perhaps people don't need 5-bed houses in years 4, 5 or 6, that some of those become, a 5-bed becomes 2-bed houses. I can't answer that question now, but we have always worked on 550. The highways modelling, the Paul and his team have been running has always been based on that. And ultimately that, if somebody tried to change that number, that would be down to then also Mid Sussex to either allow that or not to allow that. But as far as we're concerned, the application that we've worked on for the last 7 years, and that principle is now enshrined in an adopted local plan, is for 550.
And the green space is something that is going to be kept.
Yeah, so the sands, that will be going
to the land use plan, because I think it's important that the land use is the land use. And
yeah, so fundamentally, the sands country park, that will be set out in perpetuity. That will either end up in something like the land trust, and that the freehold of that is likely to remain with our landowner. And there will then be a lease that is effectively granted that runs in perpetuity, so that will never see development. Thankfully, I don't think it should. And then all the other areas of green that are fixed on this parameter plan, again, they would end up being transferred potentially into the same entities that will look after the sands, or they're going to some other management company with restrictions on them protecting them from future development. We're keen on that, and our landowner is as well. But certainly, all these areas of green, they're fundamental to the design and how this place feels and how this place evolves.
Yeah, thank you. Would any of our town council councillors, that's right, like to answer? Steve?
Yeah, okay. 2 things. One is on traffic, the other is existing green infrastructure. If you look at that for a moment, Gullidge, which is the building at the left-hand corner there, on that you show an expanded area that is not part of the sound. I know it's very sensitive land issues and you get around that anyway. Yeah. On the normal sort of thing. But your drawing of the sound seems to show all that as part of the sound. So there's conflict between.
Yeah, so that is the plans haven't been finalised yet. Yes. There will be a buffer around the Gullidge there. All the plans have been worked up with the consultant teams, the heritage consultants, ecologists, agriculturalists, landscape consultant, drainage engineers. So all of the existing blue and green infrastructure has to stay as is, which is why we have a sort of altered any of that, and there is additional green and blue infrastructure going in. But no, these plans are work in progress with all this presentation together, because also the application's not been submitted yet, so there are amendments being made.
The SANG plan, the SANG plan needs to be up, because that's a detailed plan.
Yeah.
It needs to be changed down in this corner, because that's staying retained. Next to the, it stays green, there's no further development.
The other landscape part is at the right-hand side, that's the side, between the more recent housing development,
the Oaks,
there, and those. Some of that now becomes a bit more mature. And is that being secured during this? Because that's one.
Yes.
And to make the life of people who live there more bearable during what would be a very disruptive period.
Yes.
The actual development and understanding trees and all the rest of it, real.
Yeah, so you're talking about these trees along here.
Yes.
So the new access route that runs alongside them is set back at the correct distance to ensure there's no damage to those trees.
Yeah. Again,
And does the existing link maintain?
In games, we'll go back to these are assets we have to work around, and not assets.
Yeah. The other side was traffic. I know there was a bit of tittering and whatever when questions about cars. But at the end of the day, it is a fair distance from the town centre, and people would use the cars to get to the market, the rest of it, or to the station if they were travelling further afield, or to the via the Star Junction onto the rest of the network north and west. So they do need to bear in mind because it's a fair distance from a very limited bus service, shall we say. You get the junction once an hour. The rest of the bus services do not really serve this area, so it doesn't really have that much of the transport.
Yeah, I mean,
facility, therefore, cars are far more likely to be used. So on bus route, you obviously have less.
yeah, and that's all sort of reflected within our traffic modelling. It takes into account those local conditions in terms of, you know, availability of buses, you know, distance to local facilities, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs Russell.
Oh, thank you. I suppose I should introduce myself. I'm actually a West Sussex County Councillor, non-cabinet member for children, so education is within my remit. So I'm actually going to ask you, with respect to the actual sports facilities and the land swap. You touched on it, you didn't really delve into it. Now, obviously, I do oversee quite a large capital programme, so I have regular discussions with the estates director, and he informs me quite concernedly that he hasn't actually seen these latest plans, and would like to see them as soon as possible. Also got questions. I know that there have been ongoing questions about the land swap and whether or not you would actually need to swap the land out. So I'd quite like confirmation of that, because I know that went through quite a process with the Department for Education, and there is actually an agreement to swap out that land, but as you change the access, it almost suggests that you don't need to swap out the land, which begs the question, what's happening to that land? And I was quite surprised to see that you are still committed to providing the sports facilities. If you don't swap the land out, then effectively the county council becomes a statutory consultee as opposed to somebody that you're continually liaising with. So what guarantee do we have that you will actually honour your commitments?
Well, so first, the land swap is not required, and will not be going ahead. The delivery of those sporting facilities is sacrosanct as far as we're concerned. The allocation references that those sport facilities are to be brought forward. The planning application will include those sports facilities, and as I've already articulated on more than one occasion, those sporting facilities are in phase 1. Those sports facilities will be delivered. In essence, the county council are actually going to end up in a net land position more positively than they would have been had the land swap went ahead, because obviously with the land swap they would be losing a couple of hectares, albeit they would have also been gaining the hectarage associated with the sporting facilities, but without the land swap they're actually in a net better position than they would have been had the land swap went ahead.
Can I come back?
Yes.
So that's quite interesting. Thank you for that. Thank you for confirming that. It's just that land swap we were always given to understand was part and parcel of the reason why we're getting the sports facilities. So thank you for confirming that. And so just to reiterate, if you could send the latest plans to the Director of Estates, he would appreciate it. And
they have been shared, and we're meeting with them on Thursday.
Well, with respect, I spoke to him today and he hasn't received them.
So they went to Mid Sussex, and it's up to Mid Sussex to share them with West Sussex.
Okay, well, I think up till now they've actually been liaising directly with you, so I think they're probably expecting them to come from you, but I know for a fact that he hasn't received them.
So we are meeting them on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. I should say that I'm also a county councillor, and this is actually, this site actually is in my area, and I'm also a member of Mid Sussex District Council. I should say and thank Welbeck and their partners for the access that they've given to me over the past 2 years to the information and the way that this is involved and they're able to follow it. Indeed, many of the questions that I've heard this evening have been rehearsed for me previously, which I think means that there has been a very good sort of coverage of the key issues which have gone with it. I'd like to make, I think it's 3 points. The first is that the allocation in the SPD is actually an allocation of land use and quantum. So there still needs to be brought forward a sustainable planning application for all elements of this development. So I think that is key in terms of the issues that will need rehearsing at each point through that. Second point within that is that looking at the timescale that you've got there, I would expect the major elements of the site and the way in which those plan applications have been brought forward to be within the context of a new district plan and certainly new policies which perhaps have a firmer and more direct position on biodiversity and other issues. And I think that the Welbeck also will do that. But now, just as a wild card and moving on to something which we've not discussed before, in the way in which things rise to the surface as the key issue in this area at the moment is water provision. And indeed the removal of our water. I noted from reading that there is a site for now 200 houses to the north of this area. It's north together. Yes. Right. And it's interesting to compare the response of Southern Water to the original application now withdrawn for 60, which was that 60 new homes could be accommodated without the need for new infrastructure. That is for water extraction. This is extraction of foul water. The 200, they're now saying that they need extra investment in capacity. And I think that is something, so I would just like to ask whether or not there's been that engagement with utilities, and indeed whether they've managed to have any conversation at all with South East Water, who provide water occasionally, I believe, to properties in this area, or to the rugby club, or to somewhere down there. Because certainly there are a large number, and indeed other councils are now looking at their overall housing requirements in terms of whether or not there is capacity. And I've certainly followed many of the presentations which South East Water and the other partners have been doing in terms of how they intend to meet with the water supply issue out in this set of counties out to 2050. And I have to say that within the timescale here, it looks like there will be challenges to keeping the water running. And I'd like to hear about, and it might be, for example, how you intend to meet their target of 100 litres per person versus the current target of 140.
Yeah, no, I support water usage on other sites. I put forward voluntarily 85 litres per person per day, which I think is achievable and workable. I think most people are working on about 110 to 120, because you say current regs are 140. So there should be betterment there. We should be lowering the water usage. Obviously, they will be a statutory consultee in terms of waste, as you are too well aware. They have a statutory obligation to have the capacity for foul, and they will be consulted through that process, and they have been consulted as part of the utilities report, which will be submitted as part of that application. But I take your point. We will look where possible, as I said, to reduce the water usage in the first place.
Would you like to come back, or? No? Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else have any questions? No? Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, Judy.
Can I just have a word on behalf of Tanbridge and on behalf of Boundbridge? As regard to Tanbridge, we're concerned always about the infrastructure. So, because it will affect all of our roads around Boundbridge, the A22, the A264, Star Junction, etc. So that's Tandridge's point of view. As regard to Felbridge, of course, it will affect Felbridge roads. Felbridge residents, as well as Inverbourne, use the area as a recreational facility anyway, and consider it to be sustainable just as it is. I'm concerned, obviously, about the flooding because we have had quite a lot of flooding problems in Felbridge last year, and we've also had sewerage problems last year or two. So, going back to the Southern Water comment, that's very interesting. I also am concerned about light pollution. Sitting on Tandridge Planning Committee, when you have the facilities of the sports courts, no doubt at some point they will want floodlights in the future, and we're right near to the ancient woodland there. So I think generally I'm worried about light pollution in the whole area. Thank you.
So in terms of light pollution, we have worked with a lighting consultant. I think there is, and also light consultants work in conjunction with the ecologists to come up with a design that is perhaps not the sort of floodlighting and the dispersal of light that we see in old sporting facilities and sort of other athletics. You could probably go to sort of the nearest one around here, K2 maybe, and sort of the technology that's at K2 has moved on significantly since that was constructed. So that has been designed to reflect sort of modern standards, and that has been part of the application. But it has been, we work in conjunction with the ecologists for the reasons that we raised.
Thank you. Sorry, Judy.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anybody else hasn't got any other questions, I'll close the meeting now at 8:17. Thank you very much to Welbeck colleagues for coming in today and showing us the plans, and we look forward to receiving the application in due course. I'll just close this meeting now.